Aurignacians or Cro-Magnons taught the manufacture of feminine statuettes that are now called Venus figures or Mother Goddess figures. These are some of them. Don't they look awful? Now, these figures symbolize the highly intelligent H. sapiens females who were kept naked and forced to constantly bear children to nomadic armies of worm Neanderthals. Now, their sons were eaten or placed in the army at 7 years of age, because at 7 years of age, the mixed-race children had adult size. But it was these mothers, these women, who had all these, who humanized, who gentled, and expanded the human spirit in their mixed-race children. They made them more human. And that's one of the reasons the ones who really were worshipped, because they cared for those children even though they were half-breed. Now the Venuses, these figures, I think this one's made of marble, no, that's ivory. And this one was from limestone. Now, and I thought this was funny. Listen to this. This says, it has been suggested that the swelling buttocks of some of the Venus figures indicate that this occurred among Ice Age women. There were no white women at that time because they were worn out always in the mountains. These were Neanderthals. They were worn out in breeding. Just like the Java people, 50,000 years in the mountains of breeding with no food and all that violence, they weren't able to survive. So, then the Venuses were small, portable art. They could carry them around. Many were naked, grossly fat and pregnant, with little attention paid to the face. It says, the majority of the female statuettes and the more realistic of them are ascribed to Aurignacian times, that's 40,000 years ago, as can be seen in the figure from the Willendorf, Austria. These statuettes emphasize traits suggestive of fertility. The face is often undeveloped, you can see they have, being replaced in our example by the mass of braided hair, perhaps an unconscious means of indicating a racial rather than an individualistic concept. Now, it says many show, I think this word is called steatopygia, an extreme accumulation of fat at the hips and buttocks. The condition exists in recent times among Bushman females of the Kalahari, and many females with African heritage, some of them on my street. Now, many anthropologists state that the Venus figures were basically not sexual, but expressive of the idea of procreation, fertility, and the continuity of life. And these figures were associated with the dwelling sites. Among other things, the Mother Goddess figures denoted heritage, and the rock or cave shelter of the family's origin. Now, in later millennium, notably the biblical era, the Mother Goddess figures denoted property rights and were called family gods. Now, Alexander Marshak is described, these are some of the needles this is a needle, and some of these are spearheads that they made. Aren't those are really something, I think. I can just see me making one of those. Okay. Excuse me? Okay, now, Alexander Marshak is described as a journalist turned archaeologist. Now, he studied a series of tiny engraved pits on a bone plaque from Aurignacian levels of a rock shelf in France. Now, that's this right here. Now, using a microscope and infrared light, he concluded that these pits, these little lines, were made over a period of time and coincided with changing phases of the moon, which seemed to indicate to him that the Cro-Magnons established the use of a lunar calendar. Now, if you can look at this woman, when she holds this horn in her right hand, and there are 13 vertical strokes on here, the number of nights between the first crescent and the full moon. Now, her other hand is resting on her abdomen, suggesting recognition of the equivalent of the menstrual cycle and the lunar cycles. Now, so in other words, this is telling you that they were teaching calendars or establishing the use of calendars. Now, worm Neanderthals disappeared from Western Europe around 45,000 years ago, but they yet lived in cold mountainous regions of Eastern Europe and Asia, especially in the Himalaya mountains. Now, historians state that the Cro-Magnons pushed into England, but they were not welcome among worm Neanderthals of Asia. This passage says, although the Aurignacians, that's the Cro-Magnon, that's the black Cro-Magnons from France, extended eastward into Southwest Asia, they are poorly represented in what is now usually recognized as the gateway into Asia, the Balkan countries of Eastern Europe. Now, Casey stated that the two races of Atlanteans, Negroid H. sapiens Cro-Magnons and Caucasian H. sapiens Neanderthals, engaged in a continuing series of disputes over whether the mixed race slave descended people were to be made equals or enslaved and exploited. Casey wrote, in Atlantean land, when there were those disturbances due to confusion arising between those in authority that would make for the universality of knowledge of all nature and those that held for caste or position. In opposition to the sons of Belial were the sons of the law of one, those whose standard was that the soul was given by the Creator or entered from outside sources into projection of the mental and spiritual self at the given periods. That was the standard of the law of one, but was rejected by the sons of Belial. The Bible talks about the sons of Belial too. Now, Atlanteans of Pisidia, these are, it's the kingdom of Atlantis, those are the sons of the law of one, said that the descendants of Homo sapiens slaves and worm Neanderthals had souls because they had human heritage. But the sons of Belial, these were the Neanderthal H. sapiens of Albion, England, said no, they're animals. Readings state that the leaders of Albion disputed the laws, acts, and teachings given by the spiritual world of unseen forces. He has a passage in there where they talk about that. Around 35,000 years ago, the H. sapiens Neanderthals of Albion, England, allied with Neanderthal mountain tribes and recognized their shaman as a spiritual leader and teacher. Now, the shaman considered himself the leader and teacher of all worm Neanderthal descended tribes, and he was responsible for the survival of the worm Neanderthals as a category. Now, he had the king or leader of the Atlas mountain tribes lead armies and captured the temple complex, and they enslaved and bred the female scientists, and their descendants became Cro-Magnon Neanderthals. They turned Tenerife into Aryan, the capital of Aryan Atlantis, and they reversed the swastika and made it their symbol. Plato wrote, Atlas was the first king of Atlantis. Atlas had a long and distinguished line of descendants, eldest son succeeding eldest son and maintaining the succession unbroken for many generations. So in other words, the Neanderthals captured Atlantis from the Cro-Magnon, the Caucasian Neanderthals captured Atlantis from the Cro-Magnon Negroid Cro-Magnons. And they took Tenerife and made it the city of Aryan, and they established Aryan Atlantis, and they reversed the swastika and made it their symbol. Now, the Kingdom of Atlantis had instituted the use of artwork for communication, proclamations, and information science. Now, the artwork, this is a picture of it too, on rocks of Algeria that date from 35,000 years ago is described as stiffer in comparison with that of the Cro-Magnon period. Now, the art from 35,000 years ago shows a people armed with sticks, bows, clubs, and throwing sticks. And anthropologists write that all modern domestic cattle are believed to come from the European breeds such as the Shorthorn and Jersey, and the Zebu breeds from India, or crosses of these two species. Now, bones of both types of cattle, dating from 35,000 years ago, were found together in deposits in Algeria. Now, the finding indicates that when they founded Aryan Atlantis, and England, the people of Albion, England, allied with the Neanderthals, then nomadic armies of cattle-herding Neanderthals from northern Europe came into Algeria, and cattle-herding Neanderthal, Java, Australoid, shaman priesthood, those are slave breeders and traders. They came from Iran, India, Southeast Asia, and Australia. Now, these are just nomadic armies coming in and taking over and breeding children.